Hi, I'm Jose Anunciato, and you're watching the WebDev channel.
All right, so let's take a look at React. Here I have a lecture that talks about how to deploy the simplest React application. Okay, so here's a hello world, the simplest examples on getting a React application up and running on Heroku. Okay, so let's. So first of all, you'll need to have a Node.js installed on your machine. And once you have Node.js, you can use one of its commands, the npm command, to install the following command line interface, the create React app. This is one of the official command line interfaces from the React team, right, that allows you to create a boilerplate up and running React application. Once you install that, you can create an application and then cd into that project and just run npm start. Right, this will compile or transpile the high-level JavaScript, the newest version of JavaScript, into low-level JavaScript that all browsers can understand. Right, so this is again, we're talking about a client-side framework. This is all client-side, right? So you might say, well, why do we even need a server? Why do we need a Node.js? Well, Node.js will be used to transpile, right? We'll run the scripts that will parse the high-level JavaScript. It'll compile it into low-level JavaScript that can be understood by all browsers. Okay. And also, it'll be used so that you can use in your development environment. It will host all the HTML, all the CSS, all your JavaScript. Will host it locally in your development environment, right? So you can try it out and play around with it locally on your local machine, right? But it doesn't have a server side, right? It doesn't have access to any data. It doesn't have access to any database, right? It's all client side. So it needs to go out somewhere where the data is being hosted, right? And that's going to be the same server that we've been working with the last week or so. Yes? It's going to be the same exact server. So we're going to have two pieces, right? The server side that we worked on last week, but on the client side, we're going to have a React client. Okay? All right. So let's do that. Let's see. Let's go into a directory. Let's go into our webdev. And in here, I think we had created one, but let's create a brand new one. So we'll do create React app, and we'll call it my app. Obviously, you don't have to call it my app. So this is going to install the local development environment locally on our machine. It'll transpile so that it can be started and hosted locally on a local Node.js server. It's fetching everything and preparing the directory structure. Like all frameworks, it has somewhat of a best practice way of organizing all your source code. It also generates for us the beginning of a Git repository with some git ignore files in there to ignore some of the compile classes and things that we don't want to put in source control. We only want to put the high-level source control in there, such as all the .js files in there. Okay, so it's almost done. We're going to open it up with our favorite IDE. So let's see, in here, it's under WebDev, 2018. Here's my app. So let's open it up. I don't know if it's done. Is it done? Okay, it's done. And here's our source code. As I mentioned earlier, package.json is a description of the project that describes the dependencies between our project and several other libraries, such as React, React DOM, React scripts, that get compiled. If we put this on GitHub, right, so that you can follow me, right, you can go into that directory and you can clone it down from GitHub, yes, and see my source code, and then you can compile it. You can say npm install, right? npm install will read that properties file, right? The properties.json file. It will read all the dependencies and says, oh, you need all these libraries? It'll go and install it. So I'm not going to run it again because it's going to take a bit, but you can clone it down and do an npm install to replicate exactly what we're doing here today. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, now that it has been installed and compiled, we can run it. We can say npm start. Npm start will start the Node.js server that is hosting my client application. And this is the default React application. We're going to blow away all this and start from scratch. Let's notice it's running. Node.js is running, and it's listening at 3,000. All right, so our content is under here, source. Okay, this is where we are going to put all our content. So let's blow that away. If we blow it away. And we go back, notice that there's nothing to compile. It's complaining. There's no app anymore, right? The development environment has been configured to listen for any changes in the file system, and it'll try to recompile every time you save to a file. Yes? Yeah, do not save it on the Spring Boot server application that we've been using so far, right? Instead, in a completely different directory, right, we're going to create the create React app, right? They could be right next to each other, right? They could be siblings. So on one side you'll have the server, which is a Spring Boot Java server, right? That connects to MySQL. It's hosting our jQuery client, right? So not in that directory, in a sister directory, right? Or above it, you can say, create React app, whatever, right? Webdev. They don't have to, but it'll make it easier if you put them side by side. Yeah. All right, so it's complaining that there's nothing to host, so let's create something for this. Inside of our source, we're going to create an index page here. So we'll say index.js. And in here, this is the entry point of our application. Notice that it says index. That's a very common name for a file. That means that this is the entry point. It's like main in Java, right? Or main on C. It's the entry point of an application or module or library. Typically, they'll have an index something, right? That's meant to discern that is the entry point. All right. So we're going to be using import. Import is it's a new feature in the latest version of JavaScript. Right now supports packages. You're breaking up large applications into packages, right? So that you can more easily break them up. So we're going to import React from React. Okay, and we're going to import also React DOM. You don't have to import React DOM from the very tippy top of your project. Right, it's what ties together your React application to the actual HTML, raw HTML DOM. Right, it's what dynamically binds these two worlds. Right? React DOM. So we'll use React DOM to render some content. We can say that we want to render hello world. World, if I could type. And then the physical place on the HTML page, the actual HTML page, where you want to inject this content, right? So we want to put it in document .get element by ID. There's an ID that by default React named it with an ID equal to root, okay? And we can refer to it here by its ID. Okay, if I go back, notice that it transpiles all this code to low-level JavaScript, right? And it shows us the actual H1 in there. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right, excellent. So let's keep going. We want to, now that we have a hello world, let's initialize it. Let's open up a new tab that we're in the same directory. We're in the same directory. Very good. And let's push this to Heroku. Right, so let's notice it already has a git ignore. We can git init, initialize this. Also, we're going to add all the content. And we're going to commit. We're going to say git commit added hello world index. And we're ready to push this. We're going to create a brand new Heroku application. We're going to say Heroku create. It's going to detect that this is a Node.js application as opposed to a Java application, right? So it uses the correct build pack when it gets deployed. So it'll know that this needs to run on a Node.js server as opposed to a Java server. So that's where it's going to deploy it, right, onto a sheltered Taiga, whatever that means. So we're going to push now to Heroku. So we're going to say git push Heroku from the master branch. We'll deploy it. It detects it as being a Node.js application as opposed to a Java application. It'll create a brand new server, Node.js server on Heroku for me. It'll push all this to a brand new Heroku branch Git repository, and it'll start the server, deploy it, and make it available. All right. So it's installing. It's looking at the package.json. See that? That's how it knows that it needs to download React, download React DOM, right? That's very important. That package.json, that's how we know the dependencies. So oftentimes you'll find yourself that it works locally, but it's not working on Heroku. Why is that? Oftentimes it's because you have not, you might be using a new library, right? And you have not declared it as a dependency in that package.json, right? It's the same thing as maybe in your Java server, right? You might be using a library that might be available in the class path, but you haven't added it to your POM file, okay? And so it may work locally, but when you deploy it, it will fail because it doesn't have the jar file. Right? The only way to guarantee that it works in both places is to declare it officially as a dependency, right, in your project declaration. Okay, so it's done. We can now run it and say Heroku open. So this will look at where it's deployed. And there it is. So this is running remotely on Heroku. Notice it's on shelter.taiga and whatnot. Right? And it looks identical to my local application. Both is hello world. Okay? Right. So that is the simplest React application now running on Heroku. All right. All right. So let's keep going. Let's see. How can we improve on this? Well, instead of having all this content in here, right, what React does is that it introduces the notion of a component, right, of being able to create these smaller, self-contained, modular components, right, so that you can then use them wherever you want. Right? Instead of just having hello world here, wherever I would want to display hello world, I would like to be able to create a reusable hello tag, for instance, and wherever I insert it, I can render whatever I want. Okay, so let's do that. And what we could do here is create a brand new index file here. We'll call it hello.js. And yes, I want to add to source control. And in here we can bring React from React. I don't need React DOM anymore. I only needed it in the top level index. I'm not going to need it anywhere else. I'm already working at the high level React component. So I'm going to declare a brand new component. I'll call it hello world. Okay, and this is going to be a component. So it'll be react.component. Right? And the way it works here is that when I declare this as a component, it's inheriting all the features of a component. Okay? One of the things that it inherits is a function called render. Right? That render function is what the React framework uses to tell the upper excuse me. Thank you. Is what the framework uses to know what do you want to display, as a component? And we're just going to render the same thing, right? That we had earlier. We're just going to render. It's a function, right? No longer do you need to declare it as a function, right? It's applied, and whatever I return from here is what gets rendered, right? So I'm going to return h1 hello world from component. Okay. And if I want to be able to reuse this from outside of this class, I need to expose it. I need to export this component outside of this file. Otherwise, it would be only available inside of the file. Right? So yes.
What type is that return statement returning? Like it's not a string?
It's not a string. It's JSX.
Okay.
It's a JavaScript XML. Yeah. Yeah. So usually we would have discouraged you from generating one language from another language, but now because we don't have the same issues that we would have had in concatenating strings, this is treatable just as good as an HTML content, right? So typically we would have programming languages embedded in HTML. This is kind of backwards. We have HTML embedded in a programming language. Okay, we'll go back and forth between these two ideas. When we go back to Angular, it'll go back to say, well, no, we can embed logic inside of our HTML. Right. So we'll explore both ideas. Yeah, JSX. Yep. All right. So it's returning JSX. We're going to export to the default package, right? You can declare any package. This is the default package. You can create any naming convention, just like in Java. You can create com.something, right? Or northeastern.neu.edu. That's a package you could use as a package name. Here we're just exporting it into the default package. So it's a default namespace, and we're calling it hello world. Okay, so now that I've exported it, I can now reuse it from outside of the file. Right? I can now declare it and port it elsewhere. Right? So we can go back to the index page, and we can now import it. We can say import. We exported it as hello world, I believe. Okay, from the file hello. There it is. Okay, so we imported it. It's great, telling us that we're not using it anywhere. Right, and now I can now use it. I can say hello world. And I can use it just like any other tag. Hello world. Right, so I can reuse it as if it were just like any other tag, like h1, like p, like ul, any HTML page, right? But now this HTML hello world encapsulates any number of other HTML content, right? And this is what React is pushing. React pushing you to break up your large application into smaller components, right? Into ever more small components, right? The bigger components are referred to oftentimes as container components, right? Components that contain other components. They are used for laying out, and maybe for navigation, for event handling, right? And then you have the components that actually render something, right? You're kind of declaring this. Creating this hierarchical tree, right, where only the leaves are actually rendering anything, right? Everything in between is just logic, providing event handling, navigation, and control, right? And only the leaves are actually rendered. So now hello world is actually maybe just the leaf, right? So it's just rendering. All right, so let's go back and refresh. There it is, right? Hello world from components. Right? It transpiled and it made it available and it rendered. Okay? But I don't have it on Heroku. I can compile. I can say git. So we can say git diff. So you'll see that this has changed. Actually, quite a few things have changed. Git status. Oh, workspace. I forgot to put workspace as the file as a ignore. All right, I'll do that later. All right, so let's do git add and say git commit added hello component, git push Heroku master. So this will push the Heroku branch. It will restart the server with the brand new content. All right. Okay, so that's a restart. We'll reload my package JSON. We'll see the new dependencies. Well, there are no new dependencies, and we'll restart the server. And we should see in a minute that we can refresh this page, and we can see the content, the brand new content. All right, well, that's happening. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. We created the component. Right, component files. Right, so we did the components in their own file. Right, it's hello world. All right, so we're done in that presentation. Does this finish? All right, we can refresh and notice that the new content hopefully is going to render 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What? All right, so it's taking a while. Let me look bad. Oh, there we go. All right, let's move on.
I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, like the video, and share it. Thanks.